So good morning and afternoon, everyone. And very nice to have you here with us today. Thank you very much for coming in. We will discuss what is the blue economy and the different sectors that comprise the blue economy. And before we start, most of you said you don't really have know what is the blue economy, but what could it be? What are your thoughts? What could the blue economy be? If you want to type in the chat a few answers, your first thought about what could the blue economy be, and then we'll go into the detail afterwards. There is no right or wrong answer. It's your thoughts about what is a blue economy after all. Fishing, David says, yes. Could it be fishing, the blue economy? Does anybody have other thoughts apart from fishing? What could it be? It's an unentered area of the economy, Lauren says. Everything with water that you can actually work into a business. Ocean and water, very nice. All water bodies together. Angelo says, very beautiful. Angelo, thank you. You were also there yesterday. Very good point. And using the sea to generate value. So it's around water, oceans, value, business, we see. Activities around the sea. Beautiful. Yes, thank you for the answers. So everybody's right. So actually, what is the blue economy is roughly described as the economy around our seas and oceans. Yes. So the blue word refers very nicely, as you said, to the water. The oceans are covering most of the Earth's surface, so 70%. They're holding 97% of the Earth's water, the oceans. The remaining 3%, 2.5% is in ice shelves and glaciers, and 0.5 only. 0.5% is potable water on the Earth. So you can imagine the vastness and the different comparisons of the quantities we're looking at. This vast ocean sustains most of the Earth's life forms, and actually from these life forms, we only know a few because the depth and the width of the ocean is so vast. The research is now, we're putting more and more effort now into research of these life forms. What could they be, characterizing them, and understanding how the whole food web in the water works together to sustain life. The oxygen, oceans are also producing 50% of our oxygen on Earth, absorbing quite a lot of it still, but producing it. They also absorb carbon from our atmosphere more and more. Before the Industrial Revolution, they used to emit carbon. Now, because carbon is becoming more, they're supporting us, essentially, and our weather and climate by absorbing it and becoming carbon sinks slowly. They're providing food, materials, energy, and well-being to us. So recreation and culture, very, very important also around the ocean. Because almost half of the global population lives in coastal areas, and people are making a livelihood out of it. It's linked to their culture, to their everyday activities, to our livelihoods, very important. And of course, trade's mostly transported by sea. So different objects that we are in daily contact with, they have at some point been transported through the sea to get to us. What is the definition of the blue economy, the official definition? So there's not just one. There are different definitions of the blue economy. Here we see only a few, there is more, but they all have something in common. They have the oceans word in common, seas, oceans, water. They are all around economics and about sustainability. And very beautiful, I think, the definition from Conservation International, who says that it also includes blue economy, economic benefits that may not be marketed yet, at least. So biodiversity, cultural values, very important things for sustaining a balanced world and life. How big is the blue economy? If it were a country, it would have been the 7th largest one in added value. So we're talking about the 2.5 trillion value added per year, coming only from the ocean economy. Sectors. What are the sectors within the blue economy? and our activities around them. So here on this graphic, you see all the sectors combined together. The blue economy comprises of traditional and emerging sectors. Traditional sectors are the sectors that have been there for a while. Emerging sectors are the newer ones. We look at them one by one. So first of all, traditional sectors, so which ones are they? So marine non-living resources, that's oil and gas offshore drilling, mostly. Marine living resources, here we're talking about fisheries. The shipping sector, so ports, ships, shipbuilding are a big part of the traditional sectors, and coastal tourism, very importantly. Emerging sectors now. So what have we seen in the past years and decades? So here we have desalination coming up prominently because of the lack of water we are experiencing slowly due to climate change. Blue bioeconomy, so developing products, services, and materials from based on marine organisms. Aquaculture, cultivating food in the sea. Finance, so financing streams to finance different activities around the blue economy. Renewable energy sources, you all know the floating photovoltaics, floating offshore wind energy, wave energy, tidal energy coming from the sea. And also seabed mining is a very, very new sector, not really started yet. I will explain later. And seafloor mapping the seafloor, because I read somewhere that we know more about the surface of Mars than we actually know about the seafloor in our own planet. So what exactly comes under each one of these sectors? So let's start from the top left. So marine non-living resources. So here it's mostly oil and gas offshore drilling. We see a trend of transferring knowledge from this sector into new offshore sectors like renewable energy sources, because the structures are the same. We're still talking about platforms. It's still happening in the water, in deep water sometimes. So here the knowledge from one sector is being transferred into the other slowly. We have a trend of repurposing infrastructure, for example, depleted oil and gas fields used now for carbon storage. There's still exploration and characterization of resources, even though the easiest accessible resources are already being exploited to a vast extent. There is still significant investment in this sector, but renewables are coming through slowly, and they're going to be dominant in the next 30, 40 years. An example from the innovation portfolio of Climate-KIC. We have put here a few startups from the innovation portfolio of Climate-KIC to give practical examples on how innovation could look like here. Shore Systems is a startup. It has developed remote observation via drones, hydrogen drones with very extended capacity, so they can work on remote observation of offshore platforms. Then marine living resources. This is essentially the fisheries. So here we have trends of trying to reduce bycatch. So being stricter on the species that we catch that are used for us and not bycatch. So other species that we were not planning to fish, but they have ended up in our fishing gear. There is a big trend of using byproducts, for example, from fisheries. What are the byproducts from processing fish that we can use in other sectors? For example, I have seen use of fish byproducts for cosmetics. And increase safety. How can we increase the safety of people that are in the sea, essentially with our new technologies and tools? A startup from our portfolio here, Analia, is working on education with fishermen on how to fish more sustainably, and also how they can bring out to the shore fishing nets that have been left behind in the sea. And out of these old fish nets, there is a process to take them to 3D printers later or to other installations and reuse the material from the fish nets to produce something new, circular economy. The shipping sector in general. So shipping sector includes the ships, the ports, and shipbuilding. Let's start from the shipping. So we see a trend of larger ships. Mostly container ships are also now becoming larger and larger because of the higher demand. We have a trend towards greener shipping, so more efficient ships, different types of propulsion, alternative fuels being used. And we have a trend on smarter shipping, so digital tools for communication of the ship to the shore, for controlling the ship, for controlling all systems, and having a digital twin also. Quite a lot of startups here in the Climate-KIC portfolio of different types. So for example, in advanced in different propulsion systems, we have Bound for Blue, Cargo Kite, and Touch. All of them are working on wind propulsion in different ways. So new types of sails for ships, big, large ships, where they can support propulsion and save on fuel. Cargo Share, it's an online platform for matchmaking of cargo owners with ships which have capacity to transport. Matchmakes are producing biofuels from waste. And Signol, they have a platform which is essentially supporting captains on their decision making, the crew of the ship, to make better decisions in relation to the speed and the route they follow, so they can save on carbon. The ports, similar to the ships, we have similar trends in ports, of course. So we're looking at green and smart ports. So how can we reduce emissions in the ports from different sources? How can we make our ports smarter? How can we be more efficient with digitalization, AI, and to process documentation from ships to control different elements? And based on this digitalization, we also have new customer services related to this. And a big chunk of work here is climate change adaptation in the ports, because they suffer in some cases from sea level rise, in a lot of cases from flash floods, like we see on land. Some startups here, Drone Plan and Marine Hound, they are working with drones to monitor emissions from ships and to also monitor the ship itself for maintenance. Ponera is working on storage, modular storage for the port areas. Allred is working with cameras and artificial intelligence, so the port has a view of all the trucks, all the containers, everything that comes in the port, together with their codes and their specific credentials in one at a glance. Shipbuilding, similar trends again, smart shipyards as before, so creating a digital view of the ship before actually building it. They're looking at new materials. How can we have more light, more strong materials? Circularity, of course. So how do we maintain the ship better so that it lives longer? And what do we do at the end of the life of the ship with all the materials? And last but not least, tourism. A trend towards slow tourism and visits in local places, so a very different trend to before. Diverse activities around coastal tourism, tourism with yachts, diving, a lot of such activities taking place close to the coast, and integrated tourism management. How can tourism work together with the other industries that are in the coastal area? Emerging sector trends for blue economy. So I will start on top, desalination. So there is an increasing trend with desalination because we are slowly losing quite a lot of our freshwater resources. So we see trends with solar and wind power desalination installations. We're looking at innovative membranes and systems in this sector. Blue bioeconomy sector, there is a lot of research going on now into the potential of biodiversity. So using marine organisms to produce new materials, medicine, food, and what is the potential around there. A startup we have in our portfolio, it's the Rose Red Developments. They have an algae farm and they're producing algae that can be used afterwards for food, feed, biofuels and biomaterials. Aquaculture. So aquaculture is happening in the sea, but there is also a trend of relocating aquaculture farms in within the land, so away from coastal areas. There is a trend of production of novel aquaculture feed, and this is also one of our startups, NoFeed, who is producing aquaculture feed from waste materials from agriculture. And there is a trend towards multi-trophic aquaculture, so combinations of different species, fish, seaweed, mollusks together. And there is also circularity in this process. Seafloor mapping. So a lot of work here going into data collection for improving our understanding of the chemistry and biology and eventually management of the seafloor and its resources. Reef support, a very nice idea. The startup, they have a platform where anyone, divers mostly, can upload photographs of coral reefs. So then scientists can look at them and they can characterize, they can communicate and decide about the health of the ecosystems. And that's actually the first step for protection. Seabed mining. This is quite a new area. So there is now activities related mostly to seabed exploration, not mining yet. It's quite a controversial issue because it's a new sector and it could produce from noise pollution, light pollution, a lot of dust coming out from drilling apparently. So there is quite some data gathered right now through exploration, but mining has not taken place. We expect in the next 2 years regulations, at least for the high seas, to be able for countries to see how they can exploit this resource or not. In the national waters, I think it's still the countries can still decide, but there is more potential further out. Renewable energy resources, what we just mentioned, very important and quite prominent. So we have offshore wind, offshore solar, tidal energy, wave energy, combination sometimes. So here we have Heliorec from our portfolio, it's offshore solar. Rotary Wave, another startup, is producing electricity from wave energy and they're performing desalination at the same time. And Exxon is it's working on distributed power storage, the same sector. And last but not least, finance. So there is a trend towards blue bonds, a very new instrument in the past few years, which is essentially financing activities around the blue economy. We have insurance related to the blue economy and to coastal protection, which is now becoming more and more, it's coming to the forefront, the insurance protection from sea level rise and damages. And of course, a trend on ESG reporting, so environmental and social governance reporting that companies are working on, and this is affecting also finance flows. So enough with the opportunities. Let's now see to what challenges they respond to. So the biggest challenges of our oceans today are quite a few and of different kinds. So we have one of them, a lot of them are coming from the climate change. Some of them are coming directly from human activities. Coastal eutrophication, let's start with this. So this is essentially when there is, in coastal areas, when there is a lot of nutrients and there is a so-called algal bloom. So there is more algae in the water using up these nutrients, and their quantities of algae become vast, and they don't let the light and the oxygen into the water. And this means that there is normally a dead zone under this part of the ocean. This is happening in quite a few areas, a lot in America, a lot in Europe also, in a few other parts of the world. The second challenge is the ocean acidification. So this is when the ocean becomes more acidic, which means the chemical composition of the ocean changing because of more carbon dioxide entering the ocean. This is problematic, first of all, at the front line are the corals who are suffering from this phenomenon. And it also affects the food chain overall. We have a trend here of warming in the ocean, and 2023 was actually one of the warmest years for the ocean, the warmest one for the waters. This is happening, this is affecting that, so the ocean gets warmer because of climate change, and this is affecting sea level rise. The water expands, it affects sea level rise, and it affects also marine ecosystems who are used to different temperatures in their living environments. Plastic pollution, a lot of plastic in the seas. We all know this problem. It's very prominent in the news everywhere. It's estimated that every minute that we speak, there is the amount of one garbage truck of plastic going into the ocean. Incredible. So there is plastic is there are hotspots across the globe, of course, in the waters, and there is the 5 so-called plastic gyres that are in different oceans, and there is these are spots where the currents of the sea collect a lot of plastic waste at the same spot. And overfishing, another big challenge of our times. This is when we are fishing, we're taking out more resources than actually the environment can replenish. So right now we're fishing more of the resources than we should be if we would like to keep the ecosystem in a balance. And on top of that, 1 in 5 fish, it's actually from illegal, unreported or unregulated fishing. So there is also unregulated activities happening in this area, which is making the matter worse. But the good news and what we can do ourselves on all this, about all these topics, is that starting from the United Nations, we have the Sustainable Development Goals. So the goals that we are looking at achieving and to make our world a better place to live by 2030. So here, one of them, number 14, it's life below water. So it's a goal related to increasing the quality of life below water, our oceans and our marine food chains and organisms. On the right here on the screen, you see some targets. For example, there are targets for reducing marine pollution, protecting, restoring ecosystem, reducing acidification, sustainable fishing, conserving areas, of course. And you see all of these are essentially, these targets are responding to the challenges that we saw before. And this is essentially what we're also doing through our programs. Through the ClimateLaunchpad and other programs, we're trying to respond with innovation to the most pressing problems of our times as a society, so we can go into a more sustainable paradigm and low and zero carbon in our case. So here what we see is that it's the concept of systems innovation. So in Climate-KIC, we are using the concept of systems innovation. So innovating in a way that, first of all, you look at the system, you look at the problem you have at hand, then you look around this problem. What is causing it? What are where is it stemming from? The whole system around. So zooming out of the problem, and at the same time, while zooming out of the specific issue, it's also expanding to what other challenges are out there in the world that my innovation can help with. For example, here, while solving with an innovation, with an idea about how to ameliorate life below water, at the same time, we can think, how can my innovation also reduce inequalities? How can we increase health and well-being? How can we use clean energy instead of fossil energy? How can we actually develop an innovation idea that can tackle multiple problems of our times instead of just one? And this is making it more systemic, and this will increase the impact of the innovation, of course, on many different fronts. And I leave you here. I hope it was understandable.
We want to thank all of our partners involved, Climate-KIC, Maria, David. Thank you so much for joining us today, and our sponsor of today, Irish Aid. Yeah, if you want to know more about clean tech innovations as well, follow us on social media, and we would love to see you during our regional finals as well, which will be held in October and November.